Hi, I'm Emily Milmine, and I'm going to do my book talk for my English for AB class. And the book that I read this week was A Child Called It by David Pelzer. And this book is really, really good. It's about a little boy who gets abused by his mom, and only his mom, and nobody will do anything about it, and it's so sad, but it's so good, and some parts are like really disturbing, nasty, which kind of brings me to the point or the part of the book that I'm going to read. This is just one of the things that his mom does to him. In this book, she holds him under the water till he can't breathe. She chokes him. She holds his arm above the stove to burn him. She locks him in the room with a bucket full of Clorox and ammonia so he can't breathe. And she just does these awful things to him. And it's hard to put the book down when it's just so oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. But anyway, so the part of the book that I'm going to read, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a head of the thing, because the story or whatever goes on for a couple pages. So I'm not going to read those couple pages. I'm going to tell you what happened, then I'm going to read on from there. Okay, so she starves him. His mom starves him. That's her punishment. She does not feed him. I think the longest he'd gone without eating is 10 days or something. But anyway, so he goes to school, and he's he's starving, he's hungry. So he asks the teacher to go to the bathroom, and he leaves, and he goes to the cafeteria, and he steals a frozen meal. And he eats it, really fast, goes back to class, whatever. Well, when he got home, his mom suspected that because he's been stealing food before, so she knew he probably stole something. And so she brought him into the bathroom and forced him to puke. And by forced him, I mean she punched him in the stomach till he was bent over and shoved her fingers into the back of his throat and made him puke. So it's nasty. So anyway, this part that I'm going to read to you is nasty. I'm not going to lie, but it's after you hear it, you're like, oh my gosh, I really want to know what else this crazy person did to this child. I mean, that sounds bad, but you're really going to want to read this book because it's just so good. But anyway, so that's what happened so far. So far, he puked into the toilet. Oh, and his dad was not home at the time, so his mom takes what was in the toilet that he had puked up and put it into a bowl for when his dad got home, so he could see that he had been stealing food, which honestly his dad doesn't even care, because his dad does not abuse him. He just doesn't do anything about it and lets his mom do whatever. So it's not like he would have gotten any more trouble for doing this, but that is what happened. So I'm going to start reading from here. It says, later that night, after I finished all my evening chores, Mother had me stand by the kitchen table while she and Father talked in the bedroom. In front of me was the bowl of hot dogs that I had vomited. I couldn't look at it, so I closed my eyes and tried to imagine myself far away from the house. A short time later, Mother and Father stormed into the kitchen. Look at this, Steve, Mother barked, thrusting her finger at the bowl. So you think the boy is through stealing food, do you? By the look on Father's face, I could tell he was getting more and more tired of constant what the boy has done now routine. Staring at me, he shook his head in disapproval, and he said, well, if you would just let the boy have something to eat. A heated battle of words broke out in front of me, and as always, Mother won. Eat? You want the boy to eat, Stephen? Well, the boy is going to eat. He can eat this. Mother yelled at the top of her lungs, shoving the bowl towards me, and stomped off into the bedroom. The kitchen became so quiet I could hear Father's strained breathing. He gently placed his hand on my shoulder and said, wait here, Tiger, I'll see what I can do. He returned a few minutes later, after trying to talk Mother out of her demand. By the saddened look on his face, I knew immediately who won. I sat on a chair and picked the clumps of hot dog out of the bowl with my hand. Globs of thick saliva slipped through my fingers as I dropped it into my mouth. As I tried to swallow, I began to whimper. I turned to Father, who stood looking through me with a drink in his hand. He nodded for me to continue. I couldn't believe he just stood there as I ate the revolting content of the bowl. At that moment, I knew we were slipping further and further apart. I tried to swallow without tasting. After a few hand clamp. Oh, I'm sorry. I tried to swallow without tasting until I felt a hand clamp on the back of my neck. Chew it, Mother sneered. Eat it all, she said, pointing to the saliva. I sat deeper in my chair. A river of tears rolled down my cheek. After I had chewed the mess in the bowl, I tilted my head back and forced what remained down my throat. I closed my eyes and screamed to myself to keep it from coming back up into my mouth. I didn't open my eyes until I was sure my stomach wasn't going to reject my cafeteria meal. When I did open them, I stared at Father, who turned away to avoid my pain. At that moment, I hated Mother to no end, but I hated Father even more. The man who had helped me in the past just stood there like a statue while his son ate something a dog wouldn't even touch. So that's just a part of the book of something that his cruel mother does to him. And so my suggestion is read this book. I mean, it's not that big. Just read this book and you will not stop until you have read the other 3 that follow after this one.